Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Happy Mum, Happy Baby, the podcast. Today's guest is one of the OGs of YouTube. I would say she's YouTube royalty. However, she's taken 5 years away from YouTube. She's also an actress. She's also written 3 books, and I've got to say a massive thank you to her because one of them, her rainbow layered cake, her birthday cake that is in one of these books, I have brought out every year for the past 5 years or since whenever that book was published. So thank you very much. She's also mum to 18-month-old Sage. It's Tanya Burr.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you for that lovely intro.
Well, I like to think of things and then if it comes out, it comes out.
It's so great you've made that cake so many times.
I can't tell you, so many times. And there's been, I remember one occasion where, so I usually make it the night before, but Buddy, who would have been about 5 then, 4 maybe, had come downstairs and couldn't sleep. So he helped me. He helped me make the cake for his brothers.
So sweet.
Tanya, I've got to say, so usually when guests come on the podcast, I do a lot of research about what they've said about motherhood, their kids, or fatherhood if it's a dad, and I can kind of work out what we're going to talk about. But you have kept everything really quiet.
Yes. I feel like in the beginning of my career, which was 15 years ago, there were no boundaries. You didn't see any reason for there to be a boundary. We didn't know how big this thing was going to become.
It was just a wheel as well of everyone sharing everything.
And you'll remember that time, and it was all just so exciting, and building this community of people who were just so invested in your life. And gradually over time, I suddenly realised, I'm feeling less and less comfortable with this, and feel kind of a desire to keep my private life more private and just for me. And it's been a journey, but I feel like I've finally got to a place now that I feel really comfortable with what I share online. And it's more kind of, because I've only been on Instagram for the last 5 years, kind of my sole platform really. I just share kind of things it sounds really narcissistic, but it's more people following me for me rather than knowing about my family and my friends and, personal things going on.
Although you're coming back.
I'm coming back.
By the time this goes out,
I will be back if I've managed to edit the video and remember how to do it all.
This is really exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's been a decision that I've not taken lightly. I've given it so much thought because I thought I don't want to come back and then think, actually, I don't feel like it anymore, and kind of disappoint people, if there are people still there who care. And so I've thought about it for a long time, but my reason for wanting to come back to YouTube is just, and I don't know how you feel about this, but a burnout with short form content.
Yeah.
I'm finding I'm listening to more podcasts. Mm-hmm. Because reading more Substacks, and watching more YouTube. And I went for a while, I didn't watch any YouTube, and now I just love it. It feels so kind of cozy and calm and just more chill.
It takes out the scroll, doesn't it? Which we're also used to actually, and just. It's almost like constantly flicking channels. You just need to pick something to watch and actually fully enjoy it.
That's such a good way of putting it. I hadn't thought about it like that. Imagine how stressed you'd be already, even though I've not uploaded anything yet. I've just been in the filming process. And I showed Dan, my boyfriend, the other day the edits so far, and he said, "This looks like you in your element." Oh. And he really, and I haven't done YouTube since being with him. Yeah. And so he's all kind of new to this and seeing me in this way. And I just felt like I've really missed chatting to my audience and just feeling that connection that you do when filming a YouTube video that you don't when you're posting a carousel of photos of your weekend or, the odd Instagram story. And I do find talking on Instagram stories quite difficult. It just feels more natural for me to do photos on there. So I do really miss the chatty video.
Yeah. Let's go back to your childhood. Where did you grow up? Was it Norwich?
Norfolk, Norwich. Yeah, so not in the city, but near Norwich. Yeah. South Norfolk. Because whenever I'm in London meeting people, they're like, "Oh, Norfolk, I love Burnham Market," and I was like, "Well, I'm about an hour and 15 minutes from there." But
it's a massive chunk of the country. Yeah, actually,
it's big, Norfolk, and we're actually being in South Norfolk. Even though we love the North Norfolk beaches and Holcombe is one of my favourite places in the world. our kind of family beach that would be the beach that we all go to all the time is Southwold. And that's kind of one of our special family places, and that's actually in Suffolk.
Right.
But because we're in South Norfolk, it's actually easier for us to get there.
To go there instead.
Yeah.
And what was your childhood like?
Wonderful. Really playful. I have a sister who's 2 years younger than me and a brother who's 12 years younger than me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And with the same parents,
Yeah.
I feel like I have to say that because people often think it must be kind of from a second marriage or something. But no, I don't know why. But they
Can
just
you remember
thought,
your
right,
mum telling you?
yes.
Yeah, right.
I remember. And we were going, she told me, we were sat around the table. It was just me who found out first, not my sister. And we were going to Tesco afterwards to do a food shop. And I remember saying, Mum, let me push the trolley for you. You won't be able to push the trolley. And it was really exciting. But yeah, my childhood was very kind of simple.
Yeah.
Lived in a tiny village, went to a lovely little local primary school. There were 12 children in my class.
Wow.
I was there until year 6, which is 11, 12. So probably quite a sheltered, kind of small village childhood.
Yeah. And did you ever look ahead to the future and think about having your own family?
Yes, it was, for me, having a family was always on the cards. It was always something that I wanted.
Yeah.
But I found in my kind of 20s, and actually still, even on my 32nd birthday, I remember thinking, God, I've just turned 32 and I'm with someone I really love and I still don't feel ready.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a challenge for me, was knowing when to kind of take the plunge and do it, because I thought, I always envisaged me having a family and having children. I definitely still wanted it at 32. And being settled down and living with my boyfriend.
Yeah.
And
was career a part of that? Because obviously by that point you started acting.
Yeah.
Well, you were a few years into it by then. But I think when it comes to knowing when to start, I feel like sometimes we're waiting for something, but we don't know what that is.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. Although I don't think it was a career thing even, because suddenly I just woke up one day and my birthday was in the June. So I turned 32 in the June, and remember on my birthday thinking, God, I'm 32 now. When am I going to suddenly feel like now's the time to have the baby? But I just couldn't do it until I felt ready.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, September, we sat up in bed one morning just having a cup of tea, and I just turned to Dan and said, I feel ready. I really want a baby now. And then we were very lucky and fell pregnant in February.
Wow.
Yeah. Which was a shock.
Did you have any symptoms?
The day I found out that I was pregnant, I was sat on the sofa watching BBC Breakfast. Dan had gone to work, and my whole mouth came over feeling like I was sucking coins, like metal. And I remember thinking, I've heard this before, that this is a pregnancy thing. But I just texted him saying, really weird, but my mouth tastes like this. And he Googled it and said, it does say it can be a sign that you're pregnant. And so yeah. And then we did a pregnancy test that night.
Did you wait for him to get back?
Yeah, I waited for him. And we did it together. And we were just like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then two more weeks passed. I think I was probably about 3 weeks when I found out.
Yeah.
And then at 6 weeks, so yeah, 3 weeks later, so we had 3 weeks for it to sink in, and then suddenly the sickness started.
Really?
And I had a pretty rough time of it. Until about 16 weeks, I started to feel better. So it was 10 weeks of kind of real hell, which was quite scary. And we would like to have another one at some point. So it's something that I'm really nervous to do again.
Did you feel sick, or were you sick?
I was physically sick all day, and it wasn't just morning sickness. It was all day long. A lot.
It's all awful as well, because you then hear stories of people feeling like that the whole way through their pregnancy.
Yeah,
and you're just
terrifying.
like, is this me for the foreseeable?
Yeah, it's really, really scary. I think I was so unwell that I really wasn't Googling a lot, or kind of, because that I have heard that since, and that would have really freaked me out at the time, because the thing that kept me going was that everyone said when you hit 12 weeks, you feel so much better, and it's just a first trimester thing. And I remember having a bit of a mental breakdown at 12 weeks and week 13 because I wasn't better. And I was like, I've been holding on for this time. But I never actually went into hospital. At one point we called 111. They said that I should.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave me the motivation to drink a San Pellegrino and just really keep it down because...
Well, how were you managing it?
So I wasn't really. I was just either in bed or on the bathroom floor. I told my management at the time really early on because I had to cancel work and I was fortunate enough to be in a position where I could do that. But then it obviously is scary because I then didn't earn any money for about 3 months.
Yeah.
And so Dan was amazing, really supportive. Anytime that he was home, he was there rubbing my back when I was being sick.
Oh.
I remember one time he was in the bath and I ran into the bathroom to be sick and he leapt out of the bath to hold me. And because being sick is just horrible, isn't it? I always cry when I'm sick.
It's just a horrible thing. Like your body sort of taking over, like this involuntary thing that it's doing.
Yeah, and it was really tough, but so worth it. And I will be doing it again. Hopefully, if I'm lucky enough to fall pregnant again.
So after that 16 weeks, how was the rest of your pregnancy? Did you wait till around then to announce as well?
I think I announced around 19 weeks. I think
when you could no longer hide the bump.
Yeah, when I could no longer hide the bump, and also I think I just couldn't even fathom doing some kind of announcement because I was just feeling so unwell, and then it was really affecting my mental health.
Yeah.
The rest of my pregnancy it was fine. It was really fine. I think I was just so grateful to not feel sick anymore. I'd say from 20 weeks onwards, I felt really quite good. Yeah. And I actually worked right up until the week before I had him.
I guess we can't have you on without talking about pregnancy fashion because you are someone who, you dress amazingly.
Oh, thank
How
you.
did it feel to dress a bump and a changing body?
Actually easier once there was more of a bump.
Yeah.
And I think because I did feel so unwell in the first trimester and my body changed like that.
Really?
I know some people that I follow on Instagram that I definitely would have to mute if I was pregnant at the same time as them, are just so kind of lucky and just look the same until they're kind of 20 weeks and then have this little bump pop out. My boobs, that was a symptom that I had even before the metal thing and before I did the test, was my boobs just went enormous straight away, which meant that loads of my clothes didn't fit straight away and I was having to wear looser things. And I just felt kind of so swollen in that early time, even though I couldn't even keep any food down. But I found the beginning changes with the body really quite difficult. And I think because I just felt so rotten. But then later on, once the bump started coming out, I quite liked it. And I think it's about finding those key pieces that you feel good in. Yeah. And I had this blue and white linen jumpsuit from, I think it was And Other Stories. And I remember that we went into store and I just saw it and thought, I love this. And I think I was wearing leggings and kind of a tank top at the time. So I didn't even go into the change room. I tried it on the shop floor and I just thought, this feels so great. And I've actually lent so many, I have a pregnant best friend at the moment and I've lent her so many things and I haven't lent that because I just think if I am pregnant again in summer months.
You're living in that.
I'm living in that. Nothing can happen to that jumpsuit because it made me feel so good. So I think it's about finding, and also I think something I would do next time is just find more pieces like that and more things that I feel myself in instead of doing pregnancy dressing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't buy maternity until I think I bought some maternity dungarees at about 30 weeks.
Someone said to me once, I mean, I was wearing maternity clothes, I think it was third time round, about 14 weeks. And someone said to me, I just didn't ever buy maternity. I was like, good for you. I'm 14 weeks and I don't fit my jeans.
Oh, yeah. But I didn't wear jeans the whole time. But I think next time I would like to.
And also, I think it is that summer thing, right? Being able to wear those pieces that are looser over your body.
Did you have summer pregnancies?
Only one, yeah.
Which
so the
did
rest...
you prefer, just out of interest?
for future research.
For future planning.
I found... There's something really nice about, I've got a February, a March and an August baby, but August should have been, was due in September. Actually, they're all due the month after. And I quite like, there's a lovely feeling about being pregnant in the winter, like that coziness, So I really liked that.
I have to say, well, it was coming towards winter because Sage was born on Halloween, which is quite a fun birthday, and so I was kind of towards the end of my pregnancy. I was getting to wear kind of big thick cardigans and.
I've got to say, when the baby arrives, it's quite nice being able to go for walks. I did love that with Max, being able to kind of go. It feels like there's still life around. Whereas when you have a baby in the winter, I found it actually quite, like, the days are so short, and that makes the long nights feel even longer.
Even longer. You're right. I mean, I don't have anything to compare it to, but something I did like about having a baby and going into winter was there was no kind of feeling of missing out, or not that you'd really feel that having a baby anyway, but it just was really, we just cocooned and just, it was all just so cozy and watched films in bed all the time, and the three of us just didn't really ever leave the bed for I think for the first month we literally lived in bed, which we loved. It was so cozy.
How did you feel heading towards the birth? Are you someone who's kind of researched loads of things over the years and like, I want to do this and that, or is just...
I didn't research anything, and looking back, maybe I should have, because I ended up having a C-section, and I hadn't done any research on C-sections. But I also hadn't done any kind of hypnobirthing, and I know that's something that you did and really recommend. I don't know why I didn't do research and kind of prepare myself for the birth. Maybe it's because I was scared of it, but I don't remember feeling that scared to give birth. I think I just wanted to kind of, maybe I thought the more that I looked into it, the more afraid I might be. So I just thought, we'll just deal with that when that comes. And then we did have a later scan and see that he was back to back, and what they call, I think they said he was flying in the wings. Is that a thing?
I don't know. What is flying in the wings?
As in just not at all engaged. At a point that a baby would usually be engaged. Yeah. And then we had a scary morning where I had lack of movement for about 6 hours. At a time that he would usually be really active. Yeah. And I've still kept all the notes on my phone, and when he was in my tummy, we always called him Peanut, and that nickname has stuck. So we always call him Peony, just all the time, even now. And I have so many notes on my phone being like, Peanut kicked at this time, I think I felt this, and da da da. And from when because the movement did come back, thank goodness. And
did you go and get scanned?
So I got taken in and monitored, and they said, we need to get him out today. And via C-section. Yeah. It makes me feel emotional talking about this. It was so terrifying. I was so unprepared. And that obviously, I think I'd just eaten before we went in, and they have to starve you to do a C-section. Yeah. So they said, we won't be able to do it for a few hours because you've eaten. So we have to kind of starve you. And I was in this room with just all these kind of things attached to my tummy. And
how many weeks were you by this point?
38 and a half, I think.
Okay.
So really near the end. I was full term.
But still, that thought, that sudden, like, this is what we're doing, that sudden change of plan.
Yeah. And I don't know if I asked people to leave the room or whether they just left the room, but suddenly it was just Dan and I in this room. And he just looked at me and really, when someone really kind of holds your eye contact, and he just held on to me, and he just did this speech. And I wish I could remember exactly what he said, but I think it went on for about a minute of just kind of like, we've got this. I'm going to guide you through this. I'll be there every step of the way. I love you. We can do this. And I remember that giving me a real sense of confidence, and I felt like, okay, we can do this. And then they had him get into scrubs. I think I was already in kind of a gown or something at this point, and suddenly some movement came back. And I was like, okay, brilliant, we don't need to do it. And they said, no, we still, because of the lack of movements for so many hours, we want to get him out today. Yeah. So we're in this room, we're there for so long.
It's a really
just waiting.
Scary thing as well, to suddenly go, oh, he's safer out.
Yeah.
But at this point, and that's a really scary place to be.
Yeah. And then he moved loads, and I kept writing it down on my phone, being like, this, and then he got the hiccups. And so I was like, brilliant, he's hiccuping. And my tummy was kind of going, whoop, whoop, whoop. And I was like, he's fine, guys, I can just go home. We'll let him come out when he's ready. And then, although at the time I didn't even know it was a he.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I didn't even know. And then all these emergencies kept coming in, and I don't know how many theatre rooms they have, but they kept just being like, okay, we're going to take you in at this time. And they'd be like, no, we've had it. Because now I wasn't such an emergency because he was moving. Yeah. Anyway, long story cut short, I ended up getting home that night at 11 p.m.
No.
Yeah. Them not doing it that day.
Yeah.
I remember being ravenous, eating jam on toast, being exhausted, just going to bed. And then they continued to monitor me, and ended up doing a C-section on, I think it was the Monday.
Wow. And did you feel happy and confident to have been, like, to go home?
I think so. It's all quite a blur that time. It was really crazy. But I remember Dan getting quite kind of protective of me in the hospital on the first time in, and just saying, look, I don't think she's in a position to be having a baby now. She's exhausted. She hasn't eaten for so long. Yeah. And him just saying, I just don't think this is the right thing. But obviously we wanted to do whatever was safest for the baby, and to for the baby to be safe. But I do think it was better that it ended up happening a couple of days later. And but then I think my preparation was just having the conversation with Dan and feeling that, you know, he had the confidence in me that gave me confidence. And I actually didn't do a lot of looking up, even though we knew that I probably was going to have a C-section at that point. I still didn't do research because I think it would have scared me too much, because I am quite squeamish. Yeah. And then we just went in and did it.
So on the Monday, did you know that you were going to go in and have Sage then?
Yeah, so I've been monitored again over the weekend, and then on the Monday I knew. I think, did I find out that day? I can't remember. but we went in.
It's that weird thing of every day, though, leaving the house and not quite knowing whether you're going to be back that night.
It was crazy. It was such a crazy time. But I guess it's probably quite similar for someone who's being induced or kind of just waiting. And so yeah, it was a really strange weekend. But you
remember how you felt when you were told, right, it's going to happen now?
Really nervous. Really, really nervous. I don't think I was even excited.
Really?
So I think I was just really quite nervous. Although we really got the giggles somehow. I think when they put me on this bed in the rooms, there's so many people in the room to do a C-section, and it's really cold in there, and I had on these weird socks, I think, and the gown, and I had something on my head, probably a hairnet or something on my head. And Dan looked absolutely gorgeous in his scrubs. So I was like, this should be your look. You need to be a doctor. And so I just kept telling him, I was like, you look so great. And I'm there with like these crazy socks on the hairnet on my head. And I think that gave us the giggles. And then they just did it. And it wasn't particularly pleasant. I felt really sick from the medication. Yeah. They give you the anaesthetic, I don't know. But it was all great. And I just remember Dan just being at my side the entire time, and I think I closed my eyes throughout the C-section just to try and focus on not being sick. Yeah. But then as soon as he was out, it was the most magical moment ever.
Oh. Did they do the lift up over the curtain thing?
Yeah, the lift up. and I think I remember being like, is it a girl or a boy? Like I couldn't. I was so kind of out of it, and then I remember seeing him in Dan's arms. I think Dan held him first next to me because then they have to take him and, Dan went and cut the cord, and Dan was like, am I okay to leave your side to go and cut the cord? And I was like, yeah, go do it. And it was kind of probably about 1.5 meters away. They had this bed and he cut the cord, and then they came back to me and he laid on my chest, and the anaesthetist took some amazing photos.
Really?
Because we just wouldn't have even thought to take photos.
Yeah.
And we've got so many amazing photos of that moment. And it was so special. And just, it really is the most magical, I mean, you'll know doing it 3 times, the most magical thing in the world. Yeah. Seeing your partner's face and having your baby lay on your chest and just that instant love.
It's a very different feeling. It's very different, a very different emotion, I think, than any you've ever had before.
Yeah. It's the whole of motherhood
Yeah.
isn't it? You've just never felt these feelings or this level of love before.
Yeah.
And actually, one of my biggest fears was that I would have postnatal depression, because I have been, it's in my family, we have a history of kind of anxiety and depression, and I've had to, do lots of therapy over the years and really get to know myself and know my moods in order to kind of manage where I'm at mentally. And I thought, God, I bet I'm going to be that mum who gets the postnatal depression. It's going to be awful. I'm so scared that I won't feel that bond. And there's a video of me when I'd been wheeled out of theatre, and I think they take you to somewhere else before you go somewhere else. I think there's kind of like a midway point where they're still doing checks and things. And it was, because we could see from the time on Dan's phone, it was 45 minutes after I'd had him. And he's laying on my chest, and I just look up the camera and just go, I love him so much.
Uh-huh.
And I look back at that video and I'm like, that's so crazy. How can you just instantly fall in love with this baby?
Did you have that instant bond?
Oh my God, I did. And I think it's the thing I'm most grateful for in life. So I think it did really scare me to not have it. Did you have it?
I think first time round, it was all so overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And, even though the labour had taken a little bit of time, I think I was so overwhelmed by the whole thing. It didn't seem real. And so I think that sort of seeped in. It took a bit longer. Whereas the other two, because I felt more confident, it was instant. Plus, Buddy came out looking exactly like Buzz. It's like baby Buzz had time travelled and arrived.
That's
as Buddy.
so adorable.
It was so weird, yeah. Whereas Max came out blonde and just completely different. But we felt much more confident, I think, which is why that bond was allowed to hit sooner.
Yeah.
Did you and R about finding out the sex?
No, I don't think we did. We just thought, it would be a nice surprise. But I think we would find out next time just so that we could tell him.
See, third time round, we said, we don't. Do we? When we were asked, do you want to find out? We were like, do we? Do we? We don't. We don't do this.
Yeah. So did you not find out ever?
No.
And did you like that?
I loved that. The only thing I didn't like is the speculation from everyone else. Oh, it's definitely this. It's definitely that.
Oh, my God. That drove me nuts.
Yeah. Everyone has an opinion.
Yeah. And also, for me, I just feel like there's such a kind of focus on gender, and that kind of annoys me as well.
Yeah.
And I also, one of my reasons for not wanting to find out was I really didn't want to be given loads of pink clothes for a girl or blue clothes for a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm making a human. I'm going to have a human, and it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think the historical reasons of being obsessed with the gender of the baby just don't apply to our lives anymore. So why the obsession with it?
Yeah, that's so true.
So, for me, I didn't mind. But I do think I wonder if it might help Sage envisage his life when the baby appears. But then at the same time, it will just be a baby. It will be his little baby brother or sister. So it might be exciting for him. I don't know. I don't know what we'll do.
How did it feel leaving the hospital?
Scary.
Was it?
It's scary. To be honest, I was really, really scared about my scar.
Well, because I guess at first you maybe don't feel it because of all the medication stuff, but when that starts seeping back.
Yeah. And the way that we drove home is a way that we have never driven home before from the hospital. And it was down loads of residential streets with speed bumps. And I was just like, oh my God. I was like, my stomach's going to open up. And I think that was the most terrifying thing about having a C-section was actually when you have to do the operation, you just kind of get on with it and just do it because there's no choice. Afterwards, I did find it quite anxiety-inducing, the worrying about how much I could move, or I really was scared that I would just kind of break open.
And knowing what's normal in terms of how it heals.
And pain. And and I still have tenderness on mine now.
Yeah.
So, it is not really very pleasant, the C-section. But and so that was nerve-wracking. And then when we got home, It was just so special. Just that whole, I don't really remember even the first night specifically. It was just the whole first month to me just felt like I said earlier that we just didn't leave the bedroom, and it was just November for the whole of November. It was just being so cozy and cocooned and breastfeeding, which, oh my God,
oh yeah,
no
how was
one
that? Because I've
prepares you for
seen
that.
all of your notes and I loved them about how long each feed was, when. It just reminded me of the notes that I used to take, because otherwise you forget.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to Carrie, my sister-in-law, the other day about the whole how people put hairbands to know what boob you're on.
That's
What
so
boob.
funny.
Yeah, but I would forget to move the hairband,
Oh, yeah,
so I never
true.
knew what boob.
Yeah, I would write down left.
Yes.
Right. And then my mum said to me, my mum was like, I'm sure when I fed you, I used to do a bit of both.
Yeah. I guess it depends how.
And I really didn't do that. I used to do one boob and then the other boob. Maybe towards the end of my breastfeeding journey, I used to do a bit of both. But in the beginning, it's like a whole project. It's like, I would say that.
And this is my focus. I will feed my baby.
Yeah, I really think that for the first month at least, when you're getting the hang of it, that really is what you're doing all day long. That's the focus, and for your partner too, because it was really kind of, he wouldn't always latch properly, and then it was all three of us. It was a team effort to make the breastfeeding work. And
is that something that you'd looked into beforehand?
So I had actually looked into breastfeeding. I did speak with a lactation consultant before, because I knew that I wanted to do it, and I wanted to have the knowledge to be able to do that properly. So even though I hadn't researched birth, and
I can remember going to like a little breastfeeding class beforehand, like a one-on-one. It's like, make the burger.
Make the burger? What's the burger?
When you squeeze your boob in a certain way to make a burger so that the baby can kind of latch on.
That sounds like a great idea. I had this woman had a crocheted bright pink boob with a dark pink crocheted nipple on the front.
Yeah.
And just talking about positions and just how you have to get them to. Oh my God, you've just reminded me. I hadn't thought about this in so long, but he had a latch face that he would do, and it was so cute. And I remember midwives saying, because I also had midwives, they come around after and help you and stuff like that, and they would always say, make sure that they are ready before you put them on. Don't let them go on if they're kind of just opening their mouth a tiny bit. It needs to be a big mouth to go on. And he used to do this face, and he'd scrunch his nose right up and do a really big mouth, like, I like that. And I'd be like, okay, you're ready, on. And you kind of just have to quickly just pop them on, don't you? And it was one of my favourite faces in the world, and I haven't seen him pull that face for so long. Oh. I had this thing where I was like, I can't breastfeed in a bra, like for the first month. So I was just naked, just wearing a nappy.
You were
like,
not constantly
all
leaking?
The time. Do you know what? My sister bought me breast pads before as like a present. I think when I was 12 weeks.
Yeah.
She was like, right, I've got you some gifts, and there were the man baby breast pads in there. I never had to use them because I only ever leaked in the middle of the night, and then there would be this patch in the bed,
puddle around you.
a big puddle.
And let the bed know it's milk.
it's milk, and that would happen. But weirdly, I wasn't leaking unless he was due a feed.
Yeah.
I remember sometimes he'd be having his nappy changed in the nursery next door. Dan would be doing that, and then I'd walk in to go and have a look. And so I always just thought he looked so cute when he was on the nappy changing table. And then I was like, oh, my boobs are dripping on the floor.
I guess, and also so I can remember early days of all three, as soon as my bra came off, I would leak. It's like as soon as it touched air. And I wonder actually if you were a bit more bare, that they were always touching
my boobs
air.
were used to it. They were just like, we're out. Yeah, it was only when it was feeding time, that's when they would start to, but I just quickly kind of get him on.
Yeah. And how was your breastfeeding journey?
Oh my God, it was really, really tricky, but also so special.
Yeah.
Like when it worked, and I think I put up, which is quite kind of out there for me, who doesn't share all that much, but I put up an Instagram story of me breastfeeding, and I just said, I just have to post this because we've been on quite the journey and had many tears here and there. But we just had a feed, and it was just so special and so emotional. And when it goes right in those early days, and you have a really successful feed, and it is the most bonding thing. I definitely want to do it next time.
I think I was with Buzz 3 months in before there was a feed that I was like, wow, that we're both working together.
I remember the photo. I think he was wearing Christmas pajamas, so it was probably about 6 or 7 weeks in that I was having that. Although I did use every feed when he'd come up and then have this little milky face and be all kind of cozy and sleepy. It was just really special.
Yeah.
But then I had to come back for some work things at like 4 months.
Yeah.
Because, there's no one else going to do my job, and I'm sure you had the same. And so I didn't leave his side until then. And when I needed to go to work, I was thinking, well, do I pump? And I did have a breast pump and I used it for a while, but I really didn't love pumping, and I wasn't organised enough to then put the milk in the fridge. And
I was a little bit, I got quite obsessive about expressing, about being in the fridge, what's in the freezer. Like my whole freezer door was full of frozen milk. I just became obsessed with it, basically, probably in an unhealthy way, to be honest.
But it meant that you continue breastfeeding for longer, which is amazing and totally commendable. But I just found that I was struggling to have a newborn baby, try and do some work, then also try and be organised enough to organise my milk.
Yeah.
And so we switched to just morning and evening feeds. And it was quite easy to do that. I think I had to pump a bit in the beginning, but
it's amazing how quickly your body
your
boobs
just react.
It's supply and demand.
That's what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And actually a midwife said to me, don't pump to try and relieve your boobs too much in the day, because otherwise they'll
your
keep
body
producing.
Still thinks that's what you need.
Yeah. So you just have to kind of go through a couple of days, a bit painful.
Yeah.
And then I would do morning and evening, and that was such a nice, like, cozy time.
Yeah. How long did that last for?
That lasted for a couple more months, and then it just naturally. Oh, I remember what happened. He was still hungry after the feeds, so I think I wasn't producing enough then. Because I would have carried on doing that forever, obviously. Not until he's 18.
How did it feel when you sort of said goodbye to the feed school altogether?
Do you know what? I think I did it in quite a weird way. I think we then started sleep training him around that time.
Yeah.
And so he would sometimes come on for 2 minutes in the morning. It gradually just got less and less kind of by the minute, because it always needs to be supplemented with a bottle. And then when we were sleep training him, he, instead of having milk in the night, which was a bottle at that point anyway, we switched back to breastfeeding because I could do it for less time.
Right.
Because it's quite hard with a bottle to then take it away once you started it.
Yeah.
And so the way that we sleep trained, which we basically just made up, I don't think we read it anywhere, was saying, so cutting down the milk in the night was we'd put him on my boob and we'd be like, right, he can have 5 minutes tonight, and then the next night 4 minutes, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1, and then it would be just cuddles when you wake up, not milk. So I think just gradually weaned off that nighttime feeding.
How was your recovery physically
from the operation? I think pretty straightforward.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was painful, but I think it's just what you expect, really. And I followed the rules so carefully. I was really, because I was so nervous. I've never had an operation before, ever. I've never laid on an operating table, and so for me, I really wanted to do it right, because I didn't want to mess up my body, especially because I knew I wanted to have a second baby at some point. So I just followed the rules. Really didn't lift anything I shouldn't. And Dan was amazing and did every nappy change, I think, for the first. I think I didn't change a nappy until 2.5 weeks in.
Go on.
Dan. And so he did all the nappy changes and every single feed in the night. I found turning to the side really difficult.
Yeah.
Like that kind of twisting movement. So even reaching my water bottle off my bedside table, I found that tricky. And because we tried a next to me for a while with him sleeping next to me, and I found I couldn't turn to lift him to feed him. And I actually really didn't get on with the next to me, because after having the operation, I felt like I couldn't get out of bed.
So true.
So actually we had a bassinet at the end of our bed.
Yeah.
And I would wake up Dan and say, can you go and get him and give him to me? Then I would, and sometimes a feed would last an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then I would Google it and it would be like feeding should last 15 to 20 minutes.
No, Buzz was the same as Sage. Took absolutely forever.
Yeah,
and
so
by the
Dan would
time
go
he's
back to
fed,
sleep.
winded, back to sleep.
Yeah.
I'd literally sometimes be standing there like bawling my eyes out, just like,
Yeah.
please go to sleep now.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those early days. Yeah, Dan would go back to sleep whilst I was feeding, and then I'd be like, can you put him back now? Because in the beginning, I honestly think next time I would just sleep with the baby, which
Really?
I know is I know people worry about. But once I was sleeping with him in the bed with me, we both got so much more sleep.
Yeah.
He would sleep for longer periods. I would sleep more. And like the name of this podcast, Happy Mum, Happy Baby. And I think sleep is recognised internationally as a form of torture, lack of sleep. Yeah. So it really is tough on you for both parents.
Tanya, you've just said something that I've never really thought about, which is the fact that with those side cots that I've had on all three, I've totally forgotten about the little hop down the bed I used to have to do to get out, which I had stitches down there. So anyone that's actually got stitches or is healing in any way, that's actually
they're really inconvenient.
That's really hard to get out of bed.
Yeah. And I know that they're amazing in so many ways, the next to me.
Yeah.
And we did try it, but I just couldn't get on with it.
Yeah.
And then I think I just used to do that C shape thing with my arm and not have any duvet near him. He wore a sleeping bag from 2 weeks old because we didn't get on with the swaddling. Yeah, he still wears his now.
Oh, and I love that when they can stand up.
Yeah, it's so cute.
You were worried about postnatal depression. How were you mentally?
Mentally, the love I had for Sage is what carried me through. And I honestly think that our bodies are so clever and the hormones, and it's all designed for you to be able to be there for your baby and protect your baby at all costs. And for me, I felt everything so strongly. And I wonder whether that's why I had such bad morning sickness in the beginning. Morning sickness, I say. It was for me 24/7 sickness. But I wonder whether, because the hormone, it's hormones that make you feel sick. And I wonder whether I just had really strong hormones throughout. I was really hormonal in my pregnancy. I was quite crazy at times. And I had the really bad sickness, which is from the hormone. And then when I had him, my love hormones, the oxytocin, isn't it, were insane. Right. Like, I was just like so obsessed, so in love that I really like lots of mothers I speak to say, oh, the newborn period, I just would be dreading doing that again. I really enjoyed the newborn period. For me, I would be dreading that early pregnancy again. Not the newborn phase, because for me it was so exciting and so magical. And obviously the sleep deprivation is the number one difficult thing. And I think that next time, naturally, we will actually need to get some help, and we will have to have family come and stay, because we'll have Sage as well. And what if he suddenly decides, well, I really wouldn't want him to feel not looked after because we were too busy with a newborn. So I think I definitely want our families to all kind of chip in and come and stay. The other hormone that's crazy that I think I had heard about was what do they call it when you cry non-stop from like day 4? I think it's when your milk comes in or something.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's just yeah.
But for me, I was really sad when that stopped.
Oh really?
Do you know what I should have done for this podcast? I've got so many notes. I made so many notes on my phone. I haven't looked at them for over a year.
You're doing really good.
And I know that I made notes about all this stuff. So I made notes that said day 1, feeling like this, day 2, feeling like this.
But that's also really good. I think it's such an important thing for anyone to do, to kind of track how they're feeling, because then you can really see if you're struggling, and if you're having days that you feel really down. Actually, that's a constant. You know, how many days have I been feeling like this? I think it's a really good way of
that will help me for the next pregnancy, is just knowing that even if I am so sick, knowing that I will be fine in a few weeks' time. Even though that's quite long, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that long. But yeah, I was just crying. Everything made me cry, but almost in like when you're crying at a film and it's quite cathartic. Yeah. It was a bit like that. And then I remember it was like I'd have to look at my notes, but I think it was around day 10, the tears stopped. And I was just kind of normal emotionally. Again, like I would cry if something was really emotional, but I wasn't just crying just for fun.
Just for fun.
Yeah. And I said to Dan, I was like, I feel really like cold now. I feel weird that I'm not crying all the time. I was like, I actually quite liked it.
Feeling so in tune with every emotion.
Yeah. And I felt, it just felt weird. I was like, why isn't this making me cry? Yesterday I would have been so crying because Dan made me a cup of tea. And also, obviously, you both being sleep deprived, the toughest part of that period, even though it is so lovely and there's all the love and the yeah, I'd be lying if I said there weren't kind of those moments in the middle of the night where you are kind of at each other's throats and just moments where you're both just so tired.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's the tiredness, and it's realising that is why.
That's why, yeah. And it's so kind of up and down emotionally, and I feel like that side of things will probably be easier with a second because we'll have experienced it before and know what to expect.
I'm loving your little dates. You two seem to really focus on you as a unit as well. You know, you as parents and the love between you. You seem to step away, which is, I think, a really healthy thing.
So, yes, we do. And that's something that I think we both feel really passionate about because we hope to be together forever. Yeah. And we know how important having a stable home life is for a child. And we're really conscious that we never, if we do have an argument that needs to happen, as every relationship does, we never do it in front of Sage. Yeah. And even we have a trick because obviously we're around him so much, we need to be able to have adult conversations and be around him. And if I was wanting to vent about something to do with work to Dan, and then I started, so we weren't arguing, he was being really helpful, giving me advice about it, but the way that we were talking sounded, I was worried that Sage might think it was an argument. So I said to Dan, I was like, I think I need to be careful here, and we need to and then I started telling him the same story, but telling it in like a Disney voice, and then you won't believe what she did. She said this, and
I'm loving this.
So I do really think about the life that he's going to have, and I think that Dan and I are a huge part of that, or we're everything to him right now. So it's really important that we still have a relationship because it's so all consuming having a baby, and even still when we do have our date nights, which is lovely, and I think it's really great that we do that, and it does really reconnect you, and just to get out of the house together. Because obviously we're on the sofa together every single night of the week almost. We do both manage to kind of, like, one of us will stay and the other one will get to go out with their friends and stuff like that, but 6 nights out of 7 we're sat on the sofa together, but that's not a date night. That's not going and feeling a bit special and putting on a nice outfit. And so I think it is really important to do that.
Tanya, if you could write a letter on being a mum, on motherhood, who would it be to, and what would you say?
I would write a letter to my parents because I can only, now that I've had a baby myself, fully appreciate everything that they did for me. Everything, every sacrifice, how they made everything feel, we didn't have much money when I was growing up. They really struggled to get by, and I never noticed. And they made everything, all the simple things were so special. I think simplicity is key with parenting. Children get so easily overstimulated, as do we. And if you think about when you're at your happiest, it's probably doing something very simple with not much stimulation and being with your family. And so I think my kind of approach to parenting is keeping things very simple but special, but making all the little things feel special.
Tanya, we end the podcast with you completing 3 sentences. Okay. The first one is, being a mum means
mental overload all the time.
Constant. Constant. Since having a child, I
have never felt more fulfilled.
And I'm happy when
I'm cuddling my baby or laughing with him and being silly.
Tanya, thank you so much. I know you've been so private about all of this, and actually it's just a delight to hear you talk about this whole new part of your life.
Well, thank you for giving me such a lovely, safe place to chat about it. It's been so lovely for me to talk about these things and things that I haven't ever said before, and things that I haven't even thought about. As you could tell from as I was saying things to you, I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about this.
Honestly, sometimes I ask questions then. I'm like, if someone repeated that back to me, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
You know, well, how did I feel then? I don't know.
Yeah.
So you've done very well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
A pleasure.